Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the Police Minister was crowing about the government's action on small boats, but the truth is this. So far this year, the government has allowed in 23,000 illegal immigrants across the Channel. That is 52% up on the last year under this government, and this year has been by far the worst ever. And numbers in asylum hotels are now higher than at the time of the election. This is a border security crisis, but it is also a public safety crisis, especially for women and girls. Many nationalities crossing, for example Afghans, commit up to 20 times more sex offences than average. Louise Casey made that point in her report. And now we have press reporting on the huge scale of the crime committed by illegal immigrants housed in the government's own asylum hotels. The Sun found 339 charges in the last 6 months based on only half the hotels currently operated. And the Mail on Sunday found 708 charges based on only a third of those hotels. Those crimes included multiple cases of rape, sexual assault, violence, theft and arson, including the case in Epping she referred to, where a 38-year-old Ethiopian man has been charged with sexually assaulting a 14-year-old girl. An illegal immigrant in Oxford has been convicted of raping a 20-year-old woman in a churchyard. A Sudanese man was convicted of strangling and attempting to rape a woman in a nightclub toilet in Wakefield. Now, violent protest in response to those appalling crimes is never justified. The public, though, are rightly sick of this illegal immigrant crime wave. It has to end. So in her response, will she commit now to doing these things? 1. Record and publish the immigration status of all offenders. Secondly, close that asylum hotel in Epping. Thirdly, repeal the Human Rights Act for Immigration Matters. And finally, will she emulate Greece's new approach, which started today, and deport all illegal immigrants upon arrival from France without judicial process, either back to their country of origin or to a safe third country? Will she give the House and the country those commitments?
Yeah. Minister.
Let me repeat to the House, Mr. Speaker. Any allegation of crime or sexual assault is incredibly serious, including by individuals in the asylum system, and it is to be treated so by the authorities and treated so by this government. And I must say to the Shadow Home Secretary, I regret the tone that he's taking on such a serious and important matter. And I would also gently remind him to look at his record on this issue and that of the party opposite. At their peak, over 400 asylum hotels were in operation, housing over 50,000 people at a cost of almost £9 million per day. Enforced returns were down 50% on 2010. Returns of foreign national offenders had fallen by 1,000. Criminal smuggler gangs were able to exploit our weak border security. There was no proper management of public safety risks posed by individual asylum seekers.
Order. We both understand. Okay, carry on.
There was no proper management of public safety risks posed by individual asylum seekers, and migrants could work illegally in the gig economy with few sanctions for the companies responsible. This government is gripping the situation, turning the system around. We've removed 5,179 foreign national offenders in our first year in office. And just to put that in perspective for the benefit of the House, that is more foreign criminals than were removed in the entire 20 months that the Right Honourable Gentleman was the Minister for Immigration. Excuse. I would say the same pattern is true of illegal working as well, but actually it's even worse. In the first quarter of this year, we delivered more raids, more arrests and fines against illegal working than he managed in the entire time that he was the Immigration Minister. We did more in 3 months to crack down on illegal working than he managed in 20 months. And now we are... It's not nonsense, it's facts, actually. OK, and now we are trying to go further in all these areas, but it's clear that the party opposite and their friends in Reform are the ones trying to stop us. We introduced counter-terror measures at the border to smash the gangs responsible for the vile trade. They voted against the bill that delivers that. We introduced measures to ban sex offenders from getting asylum in the UK. They voted against the bill that delivers them. We introduced tagging for those arriving illegally who pose a risk to the public and to extend illegal working duties to cover the gig economy. And once again, Mr Speaker, they voted against it. 14 years of inaction, leaving our borders exposed and our communities fractured. And yet the Shadow Home Secretary has the cheek to lecture us about keeping the country safe.
Chris Murray.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I draw the House's attention to my declaration of interest. People who come to this country legally and work hard are welcome, but the Minister is right to say that those who don't are not. We know one of the big pull factors is the ability to work illegally in the UK. And can the Minister set out what the government is doing to stamp out illegal working, and in particular what the role of the new Fair Work Agency will be from the Employment Rights Act, which should be critical in stopping illegal working in the UK?
Well, I'm grateful to my honourable friend, and he will know that the Immigration Minister, who I believe gave evidence to the Home Affairs Select Committee, to which the honourable member sits on that esteemed committee, is looking at this issue. I know recently she had a number of the companies that we have seen in the press have been reported as employing or using people, particularly from some of the asylum hotels, and I know the Shadow Home Secretary has taken a particular interest in this, and I know she is working very hard to make sure that those companies are held to account, and that the new provisions that we're bringing in to make sure that the gig economy is treated in the same way as other employers who have to check the immigration status of individuals is followed through. So there is much more to do, but certainly I know the Immigration Minister is working on this very hard.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Sarah Owen.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. The scenes of violent unrest at the Bell Hotel this weekend are deeply concerning. Liberal Democrats will always defend the right to peaceful protest, but what we saw went far beyond that. There is no place for that sort of violence and thuggery in our society. And I want to thank the police and the emergency services for their brave and professional response. And my thoughts go out to anyone who's feeling frightened as a result of these unacceptable scenes. Of course, it's completely understandable that people are concerned about criminal activity, and not least after the former Conservative government's chaotic approach to immigration shattered public trust. And that's why we need an efficient asylum system that swiftly returns those without a genuine right to stay. So I would welcome details from the Minister on what steps the government is taking to deliver this. Clear rules that are properly enforced will be key for rebuilding public trust in the system after it was broken by the Conservatives. Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Well, can I welcome the tone of the contribution by the person who speaks for the honourable member who speaks for the Liberal Democrats. This is a serious issue, and I fully agree with the honourable lady about peaceful protest, but when that steps over into violent disorder, as we saw last summer, for example, that is totally unacceptable. I would say to the honourable lady that she will know that there is a huge amount of effort going in to deal with the backlog that we inherited from the previous government to speed up the process. So those people who shouldn't be in our country are swiftly removed, and those people who are refugees, who are asylum seekers and their claim is accepted, can then get on with the rest of their lives.
Hadush Gerberslasie.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I welcome the surge we've had in returns and as well the raids on the illegal working practices. And as we spoke about before many times in this House, is these companies are incentivising the boat crossings and ultimately undermining our national security. Can the Home Office Minister set out what further enforcement can be done? And is it possible that perhaps conversations can be had with the Treasury about what further measures could be taken to bring some of these companies to heel?
Well, the Honourable Lady will know that I'm the Police Minister, and I know that the Immigration Minister has been having a number of conversations, particularly, as I just said, with employers where we know that there is work going on that should not be taking place because of the immigration status of individuals. But I know that work is already underway. There is investment with the National Crime Agency. I think there's an additional number of officers who are working on this. And we know as well that in terms of smashing the gangs who are behind bringing people across in those small boats, work is underway with that, as well as our international arrangements and treaties that we're signing with countries, which, of course, the previous government wasn't able to do.
Proud the House, Edward Lee.
This is a real national crisis, and there is such outcry and outrage in the country. There's a real danger people will take the law in their own hands, which we all deprecate. But we have to solve this, and the only way to solve it is to have a reasonable and proper deterrent. Arrest the people who land on our shores, detain them, and send them back to where they come from. The Human Rights Act was never intended to cover illegal immigrants of this sort. We have to do it for all our sakes, otherwise people will wrongly take the law in their own hands.
Well, as I just said in my comments to the Honourable Lady who speaks for the Liberal Democrats, peaceful protest is completely acceptable, and we understand that there are different opinions on immigration in this country, and people should be allowed to voice those opinions. I think when it turns into violent disorder, as we've seen, that is not acceptable. I know that the police behave in a very professional way. They allow protests to take place, but clearly they have to keep the King's peace as well. So just to set that to one side. The Right Honourable Gentleman, though, the Father of the House, is correct in that we do need a functioning system that works, where applications are made, they are dealt with swiftly, people are not waiting for years for applications to be decided, and those who should not be in this country should be then removed.
Thank you,
Mr. Speaker. I think many of us agree with the Minister when she says it's important that we are able to debate immigration and refugees and how we as a country support them, and that we do recognise when there are allegations of incredibly serious sexual offences involved, people are rightly concerned. Peaceful protest has its part, but she will be very conscious that the police themselves have condemned the mindless thuggery that we have seen in Epping. And there are reports that seem quite serious about neo-Nazi groups and their leaflets being circulated. So can she tell us, in order to protect peaceful protest, which many of us seek to do, we have to stop direct targeting of individuals with violence? Can she tell us what assessment has been made as to whether there has been any coordination of violence by groups in these incidents?
Well, again, I will say peaceful protest, we absolutely believe is part of our democratic process. Unfortunately, as the Honourable Lady will know, there are always people who will seek to exploit situations, and I think we probably saw some of that over the last few days in Epping. However, I would say that, again, there were people from the local community there who were expressing genuinely held views, and I think it's important we note that. But I'm also aware that there was literature being distributed and other groups who were perhaps coming to Epping to stir up problems as well. And I would say to my honourable friend that the police are aware of that. They are looking at all the information and evidence about what happened, and they will obviously keep that under review.
Dr. Neil Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago in Epping, there were 3 alleged sexual assaults on school-age girls, and my thoughts are with the victims, their families, and their peers. Yeah. These were allegedly linked to the Bell Hotel, which has been stood up as an asylum hotel against all advice. Since then, we have had numerous major protests involving hundreds of people, and with injuries to police officers and damage to police vehicles. People quite rightly have the right to peaceful protest, but these violent scenes are not us. They are not Epping, and they are not what we stand for. I want to thank Essex Police for all that they are doing to keep us safe in these challenging and distressing times for our town. Now we have the protests, we have churches cancelling services, businesses closing early, and local residents feeling like they are barricaded in their own homes. The hotel is in the wrong place, it is near a school, and there is inadequate safeguarding of the hotel's vulnerable residents. This is a crisis that is boiling over, and for the sake of community safety, the Home Secretary and the government must get a grip of this situation. They must listen and act now to close this hotel immediately. Will they now do this?
Well, can I just say to the honourable gentleman that I thought his comments were very measured on behalf of his constituents, and I think he's absolutely right that our first thoughts should be with those affected by what happened in Epping, with the victims and their families. So I think that's important for the House to note that. I also wanted just to reiterate that this government is committed to closing all hotels by the end of this Parliament.
Luke Eccles.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Shadow Home Secretary's concern about crimes linked to the asylum system. That's a concern that would be held across the House. So why does the Minister think that the Conservatives and Reform voted against the bill which allows the tagging of asylum seekers who pose a threat to public safety?
I have absolutely no idea, and I think it's for the Shadow Home Secretary to explain that one. But clearly, I would expect all honourable members and right honourable members in the House to want to do everything to keep our communities safe.
Cameron Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to the swift deportation of anybody who comes and takes advantage of our hospitality to break our laws and attack women and young girls. In July 2024, I warned my constituents not to throw away their futures as the far-right lynch mobs threatened to spread to Gloucestershire. Once again, this thuggery has now flared up in Epping. What actions is this government taking to support authorities in the prosecution of those who whip up this furore, both online and in positions of influence?
Well, the honourable gentleman may know there's been a great deal of work undertaken since the disorder of last summer to make sure that there is intelligence gathered from the online space as well as the offline space, and that we are, as all the authorities, are prepared and ready if there is any sign of disorder again. But just to reiterate, peaceful protest is something that I think all of us in this House would recognise is an important part of a democratic society, but not when it crosses over into the disorder and the mayhem that we saw last year when it was criminal acts that were being perpetrated by individuals.
Amanda Martin.
And I agree it is important that we are able to debate immigration and asylum. People across the country know the consequences when the asylum system fails and when it fails to protect the public, communities and businesses. We've had experience of that in my own city. Does the Minister agree with me that the public safety must come first? It is indefensible that both the Tory party and Reform oppose measures allowing the tagging of high-risk individuals? And does she agree that the breadth and depth of this crisis needs us all to work together to regain public confidence?
I absolutely agree with the words of my honourable friend. I think she put that very eloquently, and I would expect again that all members of this House would want to do everything to protect the members of all communities in this country.
Sir Julian Lewis.
When the Minister says that an asylum seeker convicted of an offence will not be granted asylum, does she have some special method of sending them back to a country from which we cannot send anyone back if they've broken into our country illegally? Otherwise, what does her sanction amount to?
To the specific question that the right honourable gentleman raises, this is about not granting asylum to those who are convicted of a registered sexual offence. So it's not recognising that they have an asylum claim. That's the issue that we're legislating for in the moment. I fully understand that the right honourable gentleman, and I understand as well, that there are certain countries in the world where it is difficult to return individuals to. I fully appreciate that. But what we are setting out in the legislation is a clear note that asylum will not be granted to those who are convicted of registered sexual offences.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Shadow Home Secretary is trying to out-populist the populists, and there are dangers involved in that. Does the Minister agree with me that it's common sense for individuals convicted of sexual crimes to be barred from receiving protection in the UK? If so, why does she think that the Conservatives and Reform voted against?
There's a simple question.
Well, again, that is a matter for each individual member opposite to explain to their constituents. And I know that this is an issue that people care about, and they will have to explain their decision to their own constituents, including in Croydon.
Kirsty Blackman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We've got a responsibility to deal in the truth. We've got a responsibility to counter the narratives when the narratives are plainly false. The Minister talked about the fact that this has crossed over into mindless thuggery. Every one of us should be standing up here saying to our constituents or anyone that gets in touch who are spreading rumours that have got no basis in the truth. For example, in constituencies like mine, there was a rumour going around last year about asylum seekers in hotels that had absolutely no basis in the truth, but could have done what has happened in Epping and caused there to be some sort of mob. This is dog whistle politics, Mr. Speaker. What is the Minister doing to say to people, actually, just like not everybody in any community in our country are rapists, not everybody in migrant hotels are rapists, and we should be doing what we can to ensure that people are protected and decisions are made as quickly as possible?
Well, I think the Honourable Lady raises a really important point, and I think over the last few years, the online space in particular has been used for misinformation, for downright lies, shall we say, as well. And it's really important that we all recognise that we should look very carefully when we are looking at social media sites. We should use our critical thinking as we teach our children in schools. Always ask the question about why is this piece of information being put out? Do I think it's from a reliable source? Look for reliable media sources if you're seeking information about what's actually happening. So it is really important. And I think for this House, we perhaps haven't always been as quick as we should be at recognising how social media has moved things on in society in a way that we need to now deal with. And I know there's an enormous amount of work in DCIT and within the Home Office to look at what more we can do around social media and the online space.
Mark Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Shadow Home Secretary has spoken passionately about crimes that have taken place in this country, including, I dare say, a number of individuals who entered the country on the watch of his government while he was a Home Office Minister. Yet, does she agree with me, as other members have said, that parties opposite taking that position whilst voting against tagging asylum seekers who are perceived to be a threat or barring from the country those who have been convicted of sexual crimes not only damages confidence in our communities, but damages the chances, the life chances of asylum seekers who have committed no crimes and who have a legitimate claim to be here?
Yes, and I think my honourable friend puts that very well. Within this, there are people who are fleeing persecution from parts of the world. And this country, as we all know, and I've heard many times in this House, we recognise our role in the world to deal with people who are fleeing persecution and to offer them a safe haven. So I fully endorse what my honourable friend just said.
Sir Gavin Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the last year, how many gangs have actually been smashed?
As I understand it, and obviously I'm the policing minister, but I will get the immigration minister to write to you about this as well. But the NCA, I know, have over 80 ongoing investigations into networks. We've got 100 new NCA, the National Crime Agency officers that have been recruited and funded by the Border Security Command. The total number of officers now focusing solely on this issue is over 500.
Gareth Stowell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When violent disorder erupted on the streets of my constituency last summer, the police put themselves between two groups of people who had been wound up and were looking to see how much damage they could do to each other. Chief Constable Chris Noble, along with Chief Inspector Chief Inspector David Barrow and Laura Davies, made sure that after the event, communities came together to realise that neighbours can live in peace. My constituents expect everybody to be prosecuted when they commit a sexual offence and a crime of some sort. Could I ask the Minister, though, once those events have taken place, What work is she doing across government to make sure those communities can come together again so that they can live together in peace? Because nobody wants to walk around on eggshells fearful of their neighbours.
Yes, and my honourable friend raises a really important point, and after the disorder last summer, we did see communities spontaneously coming together actually and wanting to say that what had happened in their local area, that was not the majority, that was a very small number of people. And I know MHCLG have been working with local authorities to make sure that rebuilding that community cohesion that for so many years under the last administration was not seen as important at all, because we know community cohesion and all parts of our society feeling safe and feeling valued is so important, and stops then those who wish to divide communities and to put people against each other. That's the way to deal with that, is through community cohesion and recognising the valuable role that all parts of society and our communities play.
Lee Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Illegal migrants crossing the Channel are 24 times more likely to end up in British jails than British-born citizens. Yet this government allows thousands of unvetted males to enter this country who are going to commit horrific crimes like rape and murder, and there's some potential terrorists amongst them. So, does she agree with me? It's time to forget the silly legislation that the Labour MPs opposite are bleating on about, and it's time to detain these people and deport them, and we don't want to see any of these silly tags put on their ankles. Just detain and deport straight away.
Well, the honourable gentleman who I sat on the Home Affairs Select Committee with for a number of years will know that when, and I think actually he attended the visit to Manston when we were both on the Home Affairs Select Committee. Oh, well, perhaps he didn't. Well, it might have helped if he did, because at Manston, one of the things that happens is information, biometrics are taken from people who come across in small boats. They are checked against records. So I just wish to I just wish the honourable gentleman might have a look at what actually happens. And I would say to him, I think the statistic that he's raising is one that comes from a newspaper. I don't think it's actually been verified, but I'm willing to have a look at it. But I think it is in the Sun newspaper, if I recall.
Mr Osborne.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Members will be aware of the public streaming of violence and criminal activity towards property and police officers. This is the second year where this has happened over the summer period. Can the Minister confirm that she's engaging with other departments to try and look at how we can review streaming activity so that it doesn't promote violence and criminal activity and replication of this in other locations around our country?
Yes, that's a very important point, and there is ongoing conversations with DC, with the Home Office, with other government departments to make sure that that particular point that the honourable gentleman is raising is addressed. And I know that particularly in the terrorist field that has been a problem, and action has been taken very speedily to get those postings down.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I've been fobbed off with ridiculous non-answers to my written questions on this subject and an insulting letter from the Immigration Minister. So I don't want to be promised yet another evasive letter that ignores the question. Can the Minister tell us the legal reasons the Immigration Minister cited to me to justify the government and Serco refusing to tell MPs and local people when they move migrants into our constituencies and where?
Well, the honourable gentleman is a relatively new member of this House. I've been in the House a while, and certainly there hasn't been under the previous administration that did not happen. Now, I know that there is always opportunities to improve. I think that local members of Parliament, local councils, the police are all engaged when there are people being moved into certain areas of the country. I know that happens. It could be better, I'm sure. But I'm happy to raise again with the Immigration Minister, because I haven't obviously had sight of the letter that she sent to the honourable gentleman.
Marcus Campbell-Savers.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The press regularly runs stories where economic migrants are quoted describing what they believe are the benefits available to them in the UK and the work opportunities our relatively under-regulated labour markets offer. Would the Minister agree it's time we considered Labour's ID cards plan, scrapped by the Conservative Liberal Democrat coalition, and its ability to reduce the UK's pull factors for new migrants?
Well, what I would say to my honourable friend is that the government have been taking action over the past 12 months to deal with this issue of illegal working. 10,031 illegal working visits, leading up to 7,130 arrests, and that marks a 48% and 51% rise respectively compared to the year before. This marks the first time in a 12-month period where more than 10,000 visits have taken place to start to tackle the illegal working in this country.
Jim Ramsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My constituency has a proud history of being a welcoming community. We have an asylum hotel in the constituency that's been there for 2 years with no problems, and the families are well integrated in the local community with many children in local schools. And yet, late last week, we were told that people would be asked to move from that hotel with no notice from today onwards. They don't know where they'll need to move, and that's despite the fact the hotel will still be used for asylum seekers. I've raised issues with the Home Office and had no responses. So could the Minister urgently look into this issue today? And will she agree that every MP with an asylum hotel in their constituency should have a dedicated Home Office contact so we can work together to promote peace and harmonious community relations and against disinformation and violence?
I'm very happy to pass on that particular issue to the Immigration Minister.
Kevin Bonavere.
Speaker, we've just heard MPs from Conservative and Reform parties decry legislation that they say is stop and fix a problem, and yet they talk the talk, but when it comes to actually voting for legislation, they don't vote for it. We've had the Shadow Home Secretary with an angry face at the beginning, going on about what's happening in hotels. It was his policy, his government's policy, that set up hotels being used as hostel for asylum seekers. This government has said we will end that policy. Can my honourable friend set out, not gimmicks, but the sensible approach that this government is taking to end the use of hotels as hostels?
I thank my honourable friend for those comments, and perhaps it might help the Shadow Home Secretary if I just say to him the number of hotels has gone down under this Labour government. Despite what the Shadow Home Secretary says, the number of hotels have gone down since this government came into power.
What's Caroline Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Sorry, that'll be the last time I get called. Mr. Speaker. Violent, it is summer, hopefully soon. Violent disorder is always wrong, Mr. Speaker. But what we need to recognise is that the violent disorder is a symptom of the outrage that people feel at the current situation and the fear that they feel of crime, particularly sexual crimes, in their community. So the Minister, instead of focusing on tone of questions in the House today and what has happened in the past, should be focusing her answers on what she's going to do to resolve the problem. And in that respect, I agree with the Father of the House and what he said about requiring a credible deterrent. So in that respect, does she regret cancelling the Rwanda scheme?
Yeah, good.
I totally disagree with what the Honourable Lady just said. Violent disorder is not a symptom. Violent disorder is criminal. It's thuggery. It's attacks on our police officers, our brave police officers. So there is no reason, excuse for what happened last summer or for any violent disorder that may happen in the future. It's criminal. It should be prosecuted and people should face the full consequences of the law.
Scott Arp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I would like to thank the police for the way they've dealt with the violent disorder we've seen from a minority of people in recent days. I would much rather they were investigating the crimes which are allegedly behind these incidents. And I do want to thank the Minister for showing zero tolerance to the minority of people within our asylum system who do break the law. It's right that we do that. But she mentions that the number of hotels have come down, the number of assignment hotels to come down. Has the bill also come down?
The number of hotels has come down. The aim is to reduce the bill overall. I think it's by £1 billion. That's the aim. But the number of hotels has come down since we came into power.
Wendy Morton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 1 year on, it's quite clear that the Labour government has not got a grip on illegal migration and criminality. There's no plan There's no cap, and it would appear today that there's not even an answer or a knowledge as to whether any gangs have been smashed. So when will she put in place an effective deterrent that protects not just our borders, but our citizens?
So the Honourable Lady says there's no plan. First, we're working with source and transit companies to stop dangerous journeys before they begin. Second, we're stepping up law enforcement with new powers, more National Crime Agency officers and specialist units in France to disrupt smuggling gangs. Third, we're strengthening border security with more patrols, drones and legal challenges to stop overcrowded boats. Fourth, we've secured a new returns agreement with France, something that the Honourable the Shadow Home Secretary couldn't achieve. A new returns agreement with France so people arriving illegally by small boat can be sent back, while also accepting a matching number of eligible applicants through a safe route. Finally, we're cracking down on illegal working and reforming the asylum system to close loopholes exploited by gangs and ensure fair, controlled migration. That looks like a plan to me. That's a plan.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the weekend, there's been numerous reports about an alleged incident at the Metropole Hotel, the Asylum Hotel in my constituency of Blackpool South. The Minister will know I've raised concerns about this hotel numerous times with the Home Office. So can she ensure that this is investigated swiftly and that I, as the MP and the community, get a report urgently?
Minister?
Absolutely. I'm very happy to give that assurance, and I know that the Honourable Member has been raising issues for some time, so I'm happy to do that.
Sarah Poacher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whilst migrant hotels cost the British taxpayer billions, migrants are now being moved into HMOs, taking houses from local people and causing misery for neighbours. Can the Honourable Lady tell the House how many migrants have been moved into HMOs and what is the cost to the British taxpayer?
I think what I can tell the Honourable Lady is that we inherited a huge backlog of claims for asylum. One of the important parts of dealing with the backlog is processing those claims and determining whether people have an asylum claim that can be successful, and if it's not, they should be then returned. So that's the whole purpose of closing the hotels, because we're going to speed up the processing of the applications.
Lewis Cocking.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month, the Immigration Minister could not tell me in a written answer how many illegal asylum seekers have a criminal record. We have an asylum hotel in my constituency of Broxbourne in Cheshunt, and my constituents are understandably concerned about criminal activity and antisocial behaviour. They don't think the government is listening to them. So when can the Minister come to this House and meet her manifesto commitment and close the asylum hotel in my constituency?
As I've said a number of times, this government is committed to closing all hotels by the end of this Parliament. There are fewer hotels opened now than when we came into power last July.
Bradley Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The vast majority of British citizens are law-abiding and are concerned about the impact of mass migration on their communities. A deterrent would go some way towards restoring trust that the British people may have in the asylum system. So when will the government implement a deterrent to send those entering the country illegally to a safe third country?
Well, as I've just set out in great detail, we have a plan. And if I just say respectfully to the honourable gentleman that the plan that the previous government had resulted in, I think it was 4 volunteers going to Rwanda. A general election was called. The Prime Minister decided to call a general election. Why didn't he let the scheme operate if it was such a success? Because that's a real question. Why go to the country if you were just about to have an enormous success with Rwanda?
Alistair.
Mr. Speaker, the House will be aware of the serious street disturbances in my constituency last month following the alleged rape of a young 14-year-old girl. Now last week in Ballymena Magistrates Court, the court was informed that the chief suspect has fled back to Romania. Does the Minister agree that extradition that works is an imperative, and that extradition that works expeditiously is an even greater imperative?
Well, clearly that's a live matter before the courts, but I would say that I want people to be held account for their actions, and if that involves extradition, then that is the right thing to do.
Jim Shannon.
Mr. Speaker, can I thank the Minister, as always, for her answers.
However, we seem to be hearing all too often regarding criminal activity of immigrants and asylum seekers across the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and more certainly needs to be done to address this. On behalf of my constituents who ask me this question all the time, every weekend to be precise, can I ask what steps the Minister will take to ensure we have a zero tolerance policy to migrants awaiting an asylum decision, and that if they are detained for any kind of criminal activity in this time, they will be sent back to their country of origin as a matter of urgency? Thank you.
Well, as I said at the outset, whoever perpetrates a crime will be held to account, and there will be consequences. So I hope that is clear, that I am including people who are making asylum applications as well as the wider general public. But people have to be held to account.
That completes the UQ. We'll let the front benches change over.